everyone. I am Nancy Quigg, your GSAR President-elect. Thank you for attending Know Your Community Day. We are happy to have you all here and look forward to hearing from our presenters today. We would like to thank our speakers this morning for taking time out of their busy schedules to be with us. Center State CEO Robert Simpson, Onondaga County Executive Ryan McMahon, and Robert Rugg, Regional Real Estate Officer, New York State Department of Transportation. I would like to introduce Robert Simpson first. Serves as president of the Center State Corporation for Economic Opportunity. Center State CEO based here in Syracuse. Center State CEO is an independent and forward-thinking economic development strategist, business leader organization, and Chamber of Commerce, dedicated to the success of its members and the prosperity of this region. We are so happy to welcome you, Rob.
Well, thank you all very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Certainly my fellow panelists, including the county executive, who I'm really fortunate to work with day in and day out on a lot of the exciting things we have going on. And, you know, it's interesting to hear some of the discussion at the beginning around what's happening here in Central New York, because I think what you all are experiencing and seeing reflected in the housing market is certainly indicative of what many of us on the economic development side are seeing that is being driven by the private sector. The amount of interest, of opportunity, our pipeline of economic development opportunities in Central New York today is the largest it has ever been at any point that I've been doing this work, which is now verging on 19 years. Not only is the pipeline extremely full with great opportunities, but we're also working on some of the biggest and most exciting opportunities that this region has ever seen. The types of projects that, should they come online, would completely transform our economic, social, cultural, and community landscape for generations to come. Now, that may sound like an exaggeration, but in fact, you know, that is the scale of, I think, the ambition that partners like Ryan and myself have certainly brought to our work over the better part of the last couple of decades. And it's now the scale of our reality in terms of what we have a chance to achieve as a region. But even short of some of these large scale opportunities, I'll let Ryan talk a little bit more detail about some of the bigger ones we're working on. I reflect often on the basic blocking and tackling that this community has gone through over the course of the last 15 years. You know, we all know the history, we all know where this community was, we know what happened to it. And we know that sometime in the mid-2000s, we all looked around at each other and almost with a sense of grief and loss as to what had happened to Syracuse and to Central New York in terms of population loss, in terms of job loss, in terms of the community psyche that had sort of turned on itself in the amount of persistent and pernicious negativity that was out there in our ecosystem. So the last 10 or 15 years for me has been an interesting journey. But I reflect on some of the major things that we have been able to achieve and accomplish over that period of time that are really remarkable to me. For one, I look around our center city in our downtown, which is one of the most vibrant cities in all of upstate New York today. 10 years ago, had more vacant and boarded up pieces of real estate and property than you might have ever imagined. And today is now a dynamic center for community and cultural activity with new projects like the Salt City Market and, you know, a mile and a half or 2 miles from the new amphitheater that the county built on the lake. Just a remarkable turnaround for the psychological heart of our community, and now on the verge of experiencing a significant amount of new and additional investment as we pivot into the reconstruction of Interstate 81 and bring the highway down. I think about our technology ecosystem, which not all that long ago was left for dead. A community that didn't really know how to support entrepreneurs or find entrepreneurs, that now just recently has had our first unicorn, our first billion-dollar startup from Central New York, Density, a company out of the Tech Garden, that is making all of us proud, that just moved across the street from the Tech Garden into another building in downtown Syracuse, is doing their global manufacturing right here in the center of our city. it's a remarkable accomplishment, but maybe more importantly, over the course of the next 6 months, Syracuse is going to be home to 2 more unicorns, 2 more billion-dollar startups that were founded right here in Syracuse. Literally over the period of a year, we'll have 3. There are communities that are 4 times our size that don't have that. And so I think we are punching well above our weight class. And now competing, as we have continued to compete for some of these major opportunities, like the Economic Development Administration's Build Back Better Regional Challenge, one of the largest economic development competitions the federal government has ever put out. 529 communities applied, 60 were chosen as finalists. Syracuse is one of them. Partnering with the county and with so many other stakeholders, putting forward a really robust application to try to demonstrate how we can drive investment in the advanced manufacturing and semiconductor industry. We've applied for over $75 million in federal funding. We'll find out here in the course of the next 2 months whether we were successful. I actually fundamentally believe that we have one of the strongest applications of the country, and I think we'll get funded because right now I believe momentum is on Syracuse and Central New York's side. So this is the most exciting point in my professional career. There's a lot more detail that I'm happy to share, more information I'm happy to get into in Q&A, but I certainly don't want to take time away from our other valued panelists. Just know that the narrative out there in the global marketplace around Syracuse has changed. They're watching our population grow again. They're watching venture capital invest in this place again because we are innovating. They are watching large-scale businesses like JMA build the only 5G manufacturing facility in the United States, and they're doing it here in Syracuse on the south side. The message is getting out. The companies that Ryan and I are talking to are reading the same news that you all read, and they're seeing the trend of investment, and they want to be a part of that. And I think the implications for all of you in the world of realty is whatever pain points you may be experiencing today, I would offer one piece of advice, which is buckle up, because I think, in fact, I know that the experience and the pain points that we're feeling today will only exacerbate, which means we need more housing, and we need more options, and we need more mix of product, and we need more affordability. We need more of all of those things if we're going to accommodate the growth that I see coming down the pipe. So thank you very much for having me. Happy to answer questions later, but want to make sure we leave enough time for our other friends.
These are just outstanding information that you have with us. And we're so grateful that you are in the position you're in. You are innovative, you are working so hard, and you are making Syracuse stand out, which we should be. Thank you so much.
No, so maybe let me share a few more additional details that folks might find interesting. You know, I was actually out just yesterday meeting with a Japanese company that's thinking about a very, very large scale investment here in Central New York. And what I found myself talking with these, this multinational conglomerate about is really telling the sort of story and the narrative of the transformation of this place. And what I find remarkable about the fact, I mean, these are projects I've spent the last 20 years of my career working on, very proud of, but sometimes we forget to take a step back and remember where we were, right? And just exactly what had happened. But more importantly, I think we sometimes in the moment, we fail to celebrate some of the successes that we have been able to achieve together. And, whether it is a company like JMA Wireless, I have now spent more time in that building over the course of the last month than I would have thought possible, walking every single elected official, dignitary, delegations from Washington through this facility. And when you're sitting there on the 3rd floor and you're looking out the window across the parking lot up at the Carrier Dome, you're reminded of the fact that the south side of the city of Syracuse was the single most disinvested neighborhood in our community over the course of the last 50 years. And now we have one of the most modern, one of the most sophisticated, one of the most impressive advanced manufacturing facilities that is, $50 million investment made by JMA in that neighborhood. And that investment is catalyzing and triggering over $175 million of additional investment in that business corridor. you think about where the railroad bridge is at the south of downtown, just south of there, you've got the Syracuse Community Health Center doing about a $20 million project. Across the street, you've got the SUNY Education and Opportunity Center doing a $40 million project. Just south of that, you've got a commercial developer, a project called Syracuse First, doing a mixed use retail, commercial, residential investment, the first of its kind on the south side, as far as I can remember, that's happening. That's a $15 million investment. And immediately north of the bridge, the county and the city are leading the charge on driving a $75 to $85 million investment in the renovation of the Greystone building in Central Tech, creating the first regional STEAM school, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math high school in the entire state of New York, right? That high school, my son's in the city district. I hope he goes to that school when he's ready. He's in 4th grade now, but it will be the best high school in all of Onondaga County if you're interested in science and STEAM disciplines. And to be able to have a facility like that in the heart of our city, accessible to students in the inner city as well as to our suburban communities and our rural communities, is a remarkable achievement, and I think speaks to one of the most powerful elements of our recent success as a community, and that to me is collaboration. I have been around long enough where I have seen moments in our Syracuse journey where the collaboration has not been strong. I experienced it. Center State CO is the product of a merger between two organizations that didn't work all that well together 15, 20 years ago. And when we put them together, we found that alignment was really critical to driving outcomes and moving the needle. And that without it, how could we ever expect someone from Japan or elsewhere to invest in our community if we can't even tell our own story with a singular voice? And now, that level of collaboration is extended beyond just the private sector to our public sector partners. The mayor is a dynamic and engaged leader. The county executive, same thing, dynamic, engaged, making hard decisions and working in parallel with the private sector and the not-for-profit community. And these things matter not only to us locally, because we spend less time fighting on the front page of the newspaper and more energy actually driving progress, but I can't even begin to emphasize to you how deeply these messages come through to stakeholders who don't live in our community, who come here like our visitors did yesterday, or like some of these large tech companies that we're speaking to. They show up and what they see from us, I hear this feedback all the time. What they see from us is a level of coordination amongst our community leadership that they do not see in other places. And while that doesn't necessarily calculate into their cost model when they're thinking about where to make investments, I can tell you it makes a human and emotional impact on these individuals that we're trying to convince to invest in our place as opposed to somewhere else. It's easier to do business here today because you have people who are working to solve problems as a team instead of trying to carve out credit for themselves. And that is something that I think cannot and should not be underestimated. And it's something I like to bring up in forums like this, because I think each one of us as voters, as citizens, as stakeholders with our networks and our friends and our relationships, the most important thing we can do when we see that kind of collaboration result in success is to affirm it and to say thank you to Ryan McMahon when he shows up for working with people and getting things done, or to the mayor or to the governor or whoever else may be. There's time for politics and ideology and all the rest of it, great. In my job, none of that stuff really matters. At the end of the day, it's a pragmatic role and function. What is needed to drive this community forward? How do we do it? How do we amass the resources? How do we build the coalitions? And so it has to be a little bit more dispassionate. And right now it is working in a way that I am remarkably excited about. Another thing that I think we don't spend enough time talking about is how important it is to recognize and acknowledge the institutions of higher education in our region and how powerful of a magnet they are for investment. And I just want to share a couple of statistics. So you all have probably read, we're talking to a large semiconductor manufacturer. We've been talking to several actually about investing here in our region. And part of that process is convincing them that they could find the kinds of workforce that they need in order to be successful. So we do a lot of this work over the last 2 years, ton of questions, ton of feedback. And what we found and what we've been able to present to the company is that within a 2.5-hour drive, there are 17 colleges and universities that grant engineering degrees of some form or fashion. Okay, so from those 17 colleges and universities, all of which are within 2.5-hour drive, there are 7,700 graduates every year that are coming out of those 17 schools with an engineering degree. So if you're a high-tech company of any sort, this is a phenomenal place for you to be. And just to drive that point home, those 7,700 graduates represent 6% of the total engineering graduates in the entire United States in a given year, right? 6% of all that critically important intellectual capital is already invested in upstate New York. They know what our weather is. They know what life is like here. They've chosen to be here for one reason or another. And what we're finding now compared to 15 years ago, when the only thing we all heard about, and myself as a young professional coming back to Central New York, and everyone asked me, why did you come back here? Why did you leave Washington? Why did you come back to Syracuse, right? The name of the day was brain drain. All the smart people were leaving. Why would you come back this way? And the reality is I came back this way for my own personal reasons because this was the quality of life I wanted. But more importantly, what we are finding now is that as growth is being driven in our tech industry, in our advanced manufacturing industry, in our service sector industry, smart people who want good opportunities, who are familiar with upstate New York, are choosing to stay. 73% of all the in-migrants to our region over the course of 2020 were between the ages of 25 and 34. Think about that for a second. 73% of all of the people who moved from some other place to Central New York in 2020 were the most prized demographic, your millennial generation, that are entering their prime earning years. They are in a position to provide a massive amount of value to our local employers. They are going to be buying houses. They are going to be spending money with local businesses. And we ranked number 3 in that percentage of all communities in America. Right? How far?
Rob, it is absolutely amazing what is going on in this city. And really, how many people know all about this? I wondered if you'd ever be able to have a little cheat sheet of giving us some information, and we can get it into the GSAR and we can get it out to all our brokers so that we have something to really speak about, because it's incredible what both you and our county exec has done to improve this city, this county. We're so appreciative.
Happy to do it, and happy to work with your team on putting some of those facts together in a fact sheet for you.
That would be outstanding. And thank you so much for your time today and all this information. So appreciated. Now I would like to introduce our next speaker, Onondaga County Executive J. Ryan McMahon II, who is the 4th Onondaga County Executive, assuming office on November 2nd, 2018. Upon taking this office as county executive, Ryan McMahon has placed a focus on 3 main initiatives: poverty, infrastructure, and economic development. Ryan, it is your turn to take over this presentation, and we are so grateful you are here. You're a good friend. You're a great friend to realtors, and we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Nancy. Thanks for having me, and thanks everybody for logging in on Community Day to really learn about what's going on. You're our ambassadors, and certainly we need to empower you with information. Rob touched on a lot of things, and I logged on late in his speech, but the reality is we are a growing community, and that's for the first time in decades. That's a fact. And when you look at where we were in 2019 before the pandemic, everything was going in the right direction. And certainly we believe we can get back to where we were in many of our economic segments and clusters of our economy. We are, but we can get back and we can actually do better because we were just getting started. So, we were ecstatic about the investments that we really were significant when you look at what's going on with JMA Wireless. moving into the old coin factory downtown, and revitalizing that campus. The only really licensed high-tech 5G manufacturer in the United States. Think about what that means in that space. You can't have international players in that space because of the sensitivity of what they do. So the growth opportunities here are just unbelievable. Amazon, everybody's probably seen the facility. We were able to bring that company here. We'll have at least 1,800 jobs from that. And when you have a growing economy, you need a diverse economy. You can't just have one type of job because not everybody has the skill set for that job. So we're really excited about big strategic wins. I'll touch base on really two things, and then Nance, if you want questions, let them fly. But Rob referenced at the end of his remarks, and I think he talked about the STEAM school, which is the first countywide effort in the whole state of New York. It's never been done, and that's happening. But that was really, that school is a laboratory for workforce development, for the jobs of tomorrow, to support existing industries, but also to have alignment with higher education for us to attract new industries. And because of the infrastructure investments we have made, we have the country's newest mega site. And a mega site is a site where you can have a company or multiple companies locate of over 1,000 acres that has the ability to, with capacity for sewer, water, and then power and electric and gas. And so we at White Pine have been in this semiconductor competition with other communities throughout the country and the world, quite frankly, for the last few years. The one thing that we never really had, we have the best water, we have the best sewer infrastructure, but also the best management. To manage that infrastructure is very difficult. You can't just create it. And so if companies don't have that, or communities don't have that capacity, it's very difficult for them to compete. And then for power, what makes White Pine, and White Pine's in Clay, New York, so unique is the electrical grid of New York State, east going west and north going south, meets in the middle in Clay, New York, at a substation across the street from White Pine. So really incredible opportunity. And so what we did is we had a couple misses. We were finalists for a couple big projects, and the feedback we got was the site wasn't big enough. So we went out and used some of our political capital, and we've made the site big enough. Essentially, we now control 1,500 acres of property. We've closed down a bunch of it. We have options on the rest of it. And we've been in this high stakes competition with some of the greatest technology companies in the world, looking here and putting us and testing us. And their CEOs, and you know their names, have been here. They've slept at our hotels. They've eaten at our restaurants. They've gone and visited businesses. They've driven through neighborhoods. And so out of anything, we always hear about bad things. In my job, all the feedback I get is always negative, because when people like something, they never call you. They just move on with their lives because they're busy. But we have to change our mindset in this community, because if you're a growing community, you have to act like it. You need, and you have to believe in it. And that's kind of part of what hopefully we'll start to do as we come out of this pandemic. But with White Pine, we are a finalist for the largest economic development investment in the history of our country. And I say finalist, it's not one in 6 different companies. It's us in one other site. And so we believe we've checked all the boxes. There's federal legislation that will likely pass in June. But the magnitude of this investment, if we land this, will be transformational. With population growth, housing starts will have to expedite to the point where we'll have to incentivize all sorts of housing starts, and I have a plan for that. But you're talking about, anywhere between 20 to 40,000 new jobs, most of them being high-paying engineering jobs, supply chain jobs, and manufacturing technicians, which gives us a real opportunity to train individuals for those skill sets. And you're talking about a real pathway out of poverty for people. And to be clear, we hear a lot about poverty. We've put together comprehensive strategies, but government doesn't solve this problem. The way out of poverty is a job and a career. And if you don't make the overall balanced investments in a community, you can't get those employers here. And so that's a perfect segue into another project I want to inform you about. Then I'll take questions. Is our aquarium project. So let me go through a little bit of the history of this, and then some of the bullets why we think this is important. But this project checks so many boxes in so many different areas, and most really don't. And so the history is our zoo is an accredited zoo, one of the best in the country. It's a public-private partnership with the Friends Group. They came to me when I became county executive and said, we really want to do an aquarium at the zoo. We have an aquarium at the zoo, which is very small, but we really want to do something special. And at the time, we didn't have any money. So I liked the idea. We said, okay. During COVID, 2020, 2021, we make very difficult decisions. We run your government like a business. And because of that, we've produced very large surpluses. And so we now have the money to make strategic investments. And so we commissioned a market study. The market study focused on, one, is it feasible? We like the idea, but does it make sense? Will it work? And two, if it will work, where should we put it? And they studied numerous locations, and they came up with the Inner Harbor. And that makes sense because where aquariums have worked in Baltimore, very similar to Massachusetts and Boston, Chattanooga, Tennessee, water was always a part of it. And these aquariums have been huge economic drivers for that. So looking at this, what would the aquarium look like? We need the legislature to advance some of the money. We're getting very close. We would love people to call their legislators to say, let's get going on this. But this would be a state-of-the-art aquarium. The only competition in the Northeast would be Boston. Over 600,000 square feet of actual aquatic space, both freshwater and saltwater. Nothing else like it in New York. And where we're geographically located, the market study showed that we would attract the types of visitors where this would be a profitable entity, even though we likely won't be operating it. The economic impact would be very, very large. Targeted support for the hospitality industry, which is the one industry in our community that still has unemployment over 9%. More room nights, more visitors means a lot of support for our hotels and our restaurants and our other businesses. Certainly, one of the things that is undercounted here as a plus is our Convention and Visitors Bureau. When Visit Syracuse is selling and Ed Riley's selling at the Hotel Syracuse to bring in business, there's not many year-round assets that you can really sell, specifically during the wintertime, to bring convention business here. We do very well in the summer, and in the fall, there's no better place to live in the world. But winter is winter. And if you don't ski and you don't like the casino, there's not a great selling tool. This would be a great selling tool for them as well. This is a jobs project. This will be a project that will create hundreds of construction jobs and hundreds of permanent jobs as well. It does offer unique partnerships with education and higher education. Rob talked about the STEAM school. Those are where the jobs of the future are. This is in the STEAM space. We can teach our kids about the cleanup of Onondaga Lake. We can teach them about the various species that are coming back to that lake. In addition to that, we can teach them about climate change, and we have higher ed partners that want to participate. When you look at the responsibility we've had in county government too, this is the next step of the revitalization of Onondaga Lake and its tributaries. The harbor itself is important to this community. We've spent over $1 billion on that lake, making it clean, where it made sense for us to make investments with the amphitheater, with the Loop de Lake Trail. Certainly the investments we've made at the ballpark. The Inner Harbor is the next logical step to invest in. One of the things that when we hosted a CEO for White Pine is we brought them to the Inner Harbor and we told them about this project. Because when they are challenging you, whether it's this CEO or any CEO that was coming in, they want to know, how am I going to retain talent? How am I going to recruit talent, specifically young people? And then when my 20-year-olds decide it's time for them to start a family, why will they stay here? And quality of life is a huge issue. This was a project we touted because of the uniqueness, and certainly that individual respected it and told us it was a great idea. So this is kind of a workforce attraction, economic development. But the last piece is the Inner Harbor itself. The potential is unbelievable. Franklin Square is probably the nicest neighborhood in the city of Syracuse. We've seen a lot of investments up and down sporadically through the Inner Harbor, but you need a density driver, and you need something that will drive people there to get the rest of that land developed. This is that driver. It will work. It's worked everywhere else. So we're excited about it. And the best thing is we're paying cash. Okay. This isn't something that we're borrowing for that's going to hit the general county fund. It won't have any pressure on property taxes moving forward. It actually will drive more sales tax for us. And that's what we do. Our model is we invest in things that produce sales tax, economic activity, and we're your only government in the whole community that has cut your county tax rate, cut the tax rate every year for the last 10 years. And in 2023, we're going to have a substantial property tax cut as well. So that's kind of just the overview. We need your support. Like I said, in my business, if I shared with you my email for the day, you only hear from people that are mad about something. It's just the way it works. And think about it. When you don't like something, what do you do with your own lives? You probably complain to people about it, maybe even more than one. You probably go on social media and post about it, even if you don't have necessarily all the facts. And so I'm guilty as well. So our legislators, these are part-time legislators. They have other careers, they have jobs, they have families. They need to hear from people saying, we believe in this community. This is a good investment. This revenue is here. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity to invest in things. And this is entertainment and education infrastructure. So hopefully you'll get behind this. You'll reach out to these folks, and we're very, very close. Hopefully we get a vote. If we get a vote, we'll start design right away. And then the design will drive a request for proposals for an operator. And then from that, we'll get building, and we'll have something our community can be really proud of. Happy to take questions on any topic.
Brian, it's amazing to see the innovation that comes from the two of you and the risk that you take. That this city has never really liked risk, but we've got to take some challenges, and we have to start to change our mindset and look into the future. And youth is a wonderful thing between the two of you for your innovation, your foresight. I'm just so impressed with how our city has such great talent. So I so appreciate everything you're doing. And now I'm going to see if there are any questions in the chat. Danielle?
Yes, we have a ton of questions in the chat. I'm going to come up to the microphone, Ryan, just because there's a lot of feedback here.
Sure.
So my first question is, with all of the development going on, do you see an increased need for more vocational education?
Yeah, right. So workforce, again, the STEAM school is a big piece of that. There's going to certainly be a heavy component on your higher education pathway, but also partnering with BOCES and certainly our trades. College isn't for everybody, and that's fine. There's individuals in the trades that make a lot more money than people with 4-year and 6-year degrees. So that's a big piece of our workforce development strategy. And certainly there will be partnerships countywide. BOCES was a huge partner in really the inception of the concept with the STEAM school.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Next question is, there's very little housing supply now, especially in low, moderate price range. The city of Syracuse is giving incentives to builders to build these. Does the county have any plans to do the same?
We do. So I have a proposal. I talked about it in the state of the county. I'm not going to hold it against you. You didn't watch my address, by the way. But yeah, we talked about this. The reality is we saw assessment growth increasing because we had a growing community. but right now inventory is driving prices and assessments way up. The fact that you guys are all doing escalation clauses up to 50 to 75 to $100,000 on property is probably not sustainable right now. So we know we need more units. So we're going to put forward a $10 million pot of money to the legislature, and I believe they'll pass it, incentivizing in all of the above strategy to help cover some gap costs, whether it's a single family housing start, whether it's a mixed use property, a senior facility property, which certainly seniors, you give them quality housing outside of their homes, they may do that. That creates more inventory. And then affordable market rate, everything. We need more units. We need it badly. Actually, that's one of the, when we're competing it for White Pine, we had to give them a pretty comprehensive housing strategy to show that they come here, we can get the job done and make sure people had a place to live.
Perfect, thank you. And I think this next question kind of ties in with what you just said. And the next question is, can you give us an idea of some of the incentives you are considering for expanding the housing?
Yeah, cash. And so the, you know, to get the projects going, and we think the increases, whether it's in rents and or housing supply, will once you get more inventory, it will slow, but it will still grow, because we believe our population growth was undercounted. We did it during the pandemic, and we think it is actually higher than the 14 or 15,000 people that we brought in. And certainly with White Pine, if this happens, and we'll know shortly. And by the way, White Pine, we're going to get a huge project. We will get a bigger project than one we've ever seen in this community. It's just, do we get the biggest one in the country? And so certainly with that, $10 million might not even be enough money. So we may have to do more.
This next one is more of a comment than a question, but it says STEM schools are an incredible opportunity for young children to be excited about learning. Very exciting. As a Colorado Realtor and resident, I can speak directly on how this will impact Syracuse in a wonderful long-term way.
We agree.
The next question is, do you feel that the All-Electric Building Act, if passed, would be detrimental to the growth in Onondaga County, especially with the White Pine project?
It's a disaster. It can't happen. So we've been loud about it. We'll be loud about it. There's better ways to deal with renewables and to work on your carbon footprint and have a real impact than this. You can take incremental steps, but certainly right now, for a policy like this, with everything going on with inflation, supply chain issues, this may not be a good idea ever, but it's certainly not a good idea right now.
Thank you. Next question is, there was an opinion article posted in the Post Standard that this $85 million aquarium would be better spent attacking lead poisoning in the community. Did you have a chance to read that article, and would you have an opinion on any consideration? Thank you in advance for your response.
Yeah, I saw the article. We, county government, quite frankly, has been the only government investing in lead abatement in this community for a long period of time, because in the early part of the 2000s, the city of Syracuse lost their lead grant for mismanagement. This mayor and our administration teamed up and secured the most lead funding in our community's history with Secretary Carson when we hosted him here. So here's the reality on that. We don't control zoning. We don't control codes. We're the metropolitan government. We have been essentially, we haven't 100% solved the lead problem in the suburbs, but we basically have done as much as we know, and we've been investing all of the resources in the city. This year, between the city and the county, we're investing $8 million into lead. If we had $100 million, we couldn't spend it. So like I said, and here's the other problem with that type of thinking, quite frankly. You can't be a growing community and say either or, right? You just got to do this. You can't do that. And the either or attitude is what happens in these editorial pages. we are attacking lead. You have to identify lead. There's rules changing with lead. If we had more money in 2022, we couldn't even spend it. So we will continue to spend more money on lead in 2023, but you don't do that at the cost of a project that's going to help create jobs and bring more money into the community. You guys will get this, okay? $1.4 billion, that's our budget. Our property tax levy is 158 million. It's nothing. We pay for our lead, we pay for our poverty programs, we pay for all of this public safety with sales tax, not property taxes. So we need projects that generate sales tax so we can continue to do more on this side. So most of the opposition to this is, quite frankly, very political. That letter to the editor was not. They were two doctors, but I don't believe they were aware of everything we've done and the fact that we are committed to it, even though it was policies by other governments or lack of enforcement for decades that got these municipalities into this problem. We'll be there to help be part of the solution, though, moving forward until the problem's gone.
Perfect, thank you. Next question, what is the status of completion of the loop around the lake?
We are starting construction on the next phase. If you've gone to behind Destiny on the Creek Walk where the Lake Lounge is there, we're right there. We're going through Murphy's Island, and that's the next phase. We've already secured funding for the final phase and are in design, where essentially we'll probably have another very large iconic bridge connecting from Murphy's Island through Lake Creek over to the Parkway. That will be an impressive design. We hope to have that done in 12 months, but you will see a new trail completed in 2022, a new section of that. Certainly that will be closed down during the time that our friends the Eagles come in for their roosting schedule in December through April. As the Eagles come each year really to feed, because the lake doesn't freeze over in that section, and they utilize some of the trees on Murphy's Island for that period of time. So we enjoy the Eagles. We'll welcome them back next winter, but this is the next phase, and so we're really excited about that.
Thank you. Got several more questions, so I'm going to try to get through them. Do you see the proposed all-electric along with other green initiatives as an issue moving forward, trying to encourage companies along with their workers to move here? If so, what is Syracuse doing to address this consideration?
So many companies right now, part of their workforce challenges in recruiting talent is they need to have progressive ideas on how they can make their own campuses more renewable, more green, right? They want to do that. And the challenge is you have to have balance with all of this. And you can't have policies that will bring in overkill and will stunt growth and opportunities. But you know, the companies that we've been talking to in the high-tech manufacturing space, they want to have the most greenest climate-friendly facilities that exist. So that's a big piece of it, because that's what their employees want. But what's being proposed is too much. It's overkill. So there's a way to find balance in all these things. You know, slowing down and really, you know, all the industries talking about this, being very loud in Albany, will slow things down, and then you can have robust conversations, because this is the type of policy that's going to have a generational impact. So you should really take your time in setting any of it.
Perfect, thank you. The next question is, some people are afraid of Destiny because of the fear of violence and crime. How can you make people more comfortable to go to that area, as well as the Inner Harbor, which seems to be nearby?
Yeah, so we believe Destiny is going to benefit from the aquarium as well, because we're bringing density there. Here are some of the facts with Destiny right now. Their attendance is at pre-pandemic levels. So even after a couple of the incidents, people are still going. And the Canadians aren't even back, right? So the facility at Destiny is not going to go dark. This isn't Shopping Town Mall, and it's not Great Northern Mall. They have to, their business model is going to have to change, and it's going to have to get back to entertainment, a larger blend of entertainment or different things in housing, different things for the future. But one of the things they've done since the incident, and I was at the mall during that incident with my kids, is we've put more of our probation officers in the facility. Our probation officers can violate anybody who's not supposed to be there and put them in jail. So from a deterrent standpoint, anyone who shouldn't be doing things that they're doing, they're more effective than police officers, quite frankly. But there has been a beefed up presence with SPD. Look, we're in a very, very strange place right now in this world, and there are risks with everything we do every day in areas that unfortunately we never thought there would be risk, and there should not be risk. But there have been very proactive steps taken to address security issues at Destiny. I think it's much better, and I do think it is safe. And I think some of the individuals that were involved with gang activity have gotten the memo that downtown isn't a place for them to be, and that certainly Destiny isn't. And overall, our law enforcement community knows who they are, and they're coming after them.
Perfect, thank you. The next question is, great job, Ryan. Any further developments with a pharmaceutical company? With China controlling the majority of the market, will it become an issue similar to what baby formula is now?
Great question. Really excited about the announcement with Bristol. There's a lot of opportunities with the new company, Latte coming in, South Korean company. They recognize the quality workforce we had there, but they also recognize the campus as being underutilized. So there could be some really enhanced contract manufacturing there as well. But supply chain is something that if our country hasn't learned from this during the beginning of the pandemic, or what a pandemic can do, that the supply chain needs to be repatriated here to the country, then everybody's really screwed up at the national level. Certainly that's something that represents real opportunities to repatriate jobs, but it's national security issue as well.
Thank you. We only have 5 minutes left with Mr. McMahon, so I'm going to do one more question. And that is, the building plans to be built when I-81 comes down may lead to further gentrification. Do you have a comment on this? And this will be our last question.
We know the concern. There are many stakeholders that are working that want to make sure that the individuals who lived next to that piece of infrastructure for years have their opportunity to live in a newly revitalized neighborhood. We've heard the concern over and over again. History tells us and teaches us it is a valid concern, but I believe the leaders in this community will address that concern.
Great. Wonderful questions. Great presentation, Ryan. We thank you so much for what you've done and your comments today. And we hope that things go forward with the aquarium. It sounds like a fabulous project. And I think what we will do right now is we will go to our next presenter, which would be the New York State Department of Transportation Regional Real Estate Officer, Robert Rugg, with an update on the massive I-81 project. Robert, if you could give us your information, we would love to hear from you at this point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have a presentation I want to share with you. We'll go through it, and hopefully everyone can see that now. Okay, so we're approaching the record of decision phase on this project, which is a big point. We've getting to a consensus on the community grid. We're progressing that way. As we get to the record of decision, that's really our approval to start moving forward with our final design details. We kind of get out of the conceptual stage and start putting this thing together. I know we've talked a little bit before about some of the unique features of this job, and you know, we still have a significant amount of work to do, but this is, you know, we're can start soon on you know, real estate acquisition. We'll start getting the design details together. We'll start putting contracts together, which will be, we expect the first one to be getting out into the construction community, getting a contractor on board, and you know, we really start seeing a lot happening late this year and early next year. Just kind of recapping what I think a lot of you have probably seen is this is kind of the big picture of what the community grid will do. It's you know, improvements to the interchanges of what is currently 481, so that can be future Interstate 81. Some improvements, some added lanes along that 481 corridor, and what is currently 81 will become Business Loop 81. And I'll get into a little bit more of the details of the specific features, and I'm actually going to give a little more information on the specific contracts that we're going to use to build this project. So this is Business Loop 81 in downtown Syracuse. So this is really what a lot of people have talked about. This would be the section from kind of the SU Hill up to 690, where what is currently 81 is going to go down to a street level boulevard. On either end of that, we'll still have the full speed expressway, but this section here will be a full, you know, a boulevard signalized. So as motorists are coming from the destination south of Syracuse, traveling north, they would transition to a 30-mile-an-hour speed at you know, kind of the Dome area, and they take Almond up to Erie Boulevard onto Pearl Street, which we're turning back to the high-speed freeway. Motorists coming from the north of the city who are traveling south would take Oswego Boulevard to Erie Boulevard onto Almond, which would then return them back to the high-speed freeway again at the same area, the Dome area. And the Department of Transportation would own the Business Loop 81 corridor in its entirety. So this includes the section in downtown Syracuse, and we would continue to work and coordinate with the city of Syracuse. So some of the features of the community grid is that there's going to be more than just Business Loop 81. We're looking to efficiently get people to where they want to go. So there are a number of improvements with that to local streets, with the idea that we'll disperse traffic and provide new ways to access the city from both Business Loop 81 as well as I-690. We'd build new access points at Oswego Boulevard, Cross Avenue, and Irving Avenue for faster and more direct access to destinations downtown and to the University Hill area. DOT would maintain the Clinton, Pearl, and West Street access points to just disperse local traffic throughout the city. And motorists living on the south side of the city heading north would also see the grid activated by a number of transportation upgrades. Some streets will be converted from one-way to two-way, including Krause, Irving, Adams, and Harrison, to better connect neighborhoods and the community. So as discussed, we have two phases, two big phases to this contract. The phase one is the one that is going to really start to move. That's the first 3 years of the big picture contract. And then phase two, which I'll talk about a little bit later, which is, so phase one is really getting the improvements in place, getting some of the connections in place in order that we can, towards the end of phase one, 3 years down the road, that's when we can actually get to the point where we can remove the current viaduct. And then there's 3 contracts being proposed in phase two, which will finish up the project. So quickly looking at the next 3 years, these are the different contracts. So contract one is the northern section of 481-81. The contract 2 is the southern section of the exchange improvements at 81 and 481. Contract 4 is the Kraus and Irving. We're going to add access points there off of 690. Contract 3 is there's improvements on the north side, including a connection with Clinton Street. And contract 5 is going to be some improvements on the southern end, the very southern end, including the railroad bridge and up to Van Buren. I'll talk a little bit more about that moving forward. And then moving on to phase 2, this is kind of an overview of everything going on. Contract 6 is going to be rebuilding of 690 through the city. Contract 7 is going to be Business Loop 81, the northern section of that, and contract 8 will be, excuse me, the southern section. That's really going to be where the boulevard gets created. So a little more on each contract now. Contract 1 is a design build, which gets us moving a little bit quicker on that one. The design build, whereas the team actually brings the plans to final design point as they're building the improvements. Allows for some innovation there with that way of attacking. It also allows us to get this first phase moving a little sooner. This contract includes 6 bridge replacements associated with 81 and 8 bridge rehabilitations on the existing I-481 corridor. We'll expand those bridges from 2-lane structures to 3-lane structures. And there are numerous highway sections along the existing I-481 that will be expanded from 2 lanes to 3 lanes between the northern I-481 or I-81 and I-481 interchange and I-690. We also have substantial noise wall work to replace the existing wood barrier structures and establish new noise wall systems to protect homeowners and businesses as part of the noise abatement work. All right, so that's contract 1. Contract 2 is the southern I-480 or I-81, I-481 interchange conversion. So that'll be the work to improve the ramps that you can travel along 81 to 480, what is now called 481. I know this gets a little confusing, but future 81, continuing at highway speeds. So you know, 65 mile an hour speeds. Okay. Then there are the 3 downtown, these are design bid build projects. So these are the ones that are going to be fully designed before we get the contractor on board. Starting with contract 3, that would rebuild the northern section adjacent to and over the existing I-81 corridor. This construction work will minimize disruptions of traffic entering and leaving the city on 81 during phase 1. Clinton Street will be reconstructed from Bear to Gannett and be extended to Butternut. DOT will replace Bear Court and Spencer Street bridges over the existing I-81. And we will do on and off ramp work from I-81, which includes moving the northbound Court Street on and off ramps to Bear Street. And the new Clinton Street southbound on and off ramps will be provided to give a new access to the Inner Harbor area. Contract 4, that provides new access to University Hill through newly established Kraus and Irving interchange with I-690. This will be a new full interchange with on and off ramps to I-690 connecting to Kraus and Irving. Kraus will be reconstructed from Burnett to Genesee and rehabilitated up to Adams Street. Irving will be extended north of Fayette to under I-690 and connect with the new ramps for I-690. Irving will be reconstructed from I-690 to south of Fayette Street, and the rest of Irving will be rehabilitated up to Adams Street as well. Both Kraus and Irving will include two-way traffic up to the hill with new on-street parking and pedestrian accommodations for much of each corridor. So this whole work is going to include 6 new bridges carrying I-690 over Kraus, Irving, and Lodi. Full reconstruction of 690 from east of Lodi, kind of where the Teal Beach project left off, to west of Irving at Foreman Street. And finally, here's just another view of how it's how the Irving connection is going to look. And finally, moving on to contract 5. So this is the 5th and final project of phase 1. So Business Loop 81 northbound Colvin Street exit off ramp will also be added to help further disperse the south city traffic and give motorists new access to University Hill, South Side and outer Comstock neighborhood. Also includes a new railroad bridge over Business Loop 81 and will transition the highway from the higher to the slower speeds at that point. Noise walls installation, transportation upgrades in front of the school. And we'll also create some surplus property there, which I'll get into a little bit later. DOT has moved the roundabout location from the earlier proposal at MLK School to north of Van Buren. I think you can see some of the renderings here. Kind of shows the Van Buren looking down towards the proposed roundabout. And we're working on the aesthetics there. I think there's certainly a gateway opportunity with this type of feature. And here's just a little more detail on how we're slowing traffic. So as you can see, you're kind of coming in, you have some geometrics here that's going to slow people down to that slower 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. And then really the kind of the gateway transition feature here of the roundabout as you continue north. And likewise, if you're coming south, you're going to come through this area and then you're going to start to get back up to the freeway section. All right, so that's the end of the first 3 years. So I'm going to move through a little bit quicker on these the next 3 contracts. They're going to be again 2025 or later when these actually start to move. 2025, 2026, you're going to start to see this work happening. So this 6th contract, that is also a proposed design build contract. This is the largest project of all 8 and includes the reconstruction of I-690 from Foreman Street to west of Leavenworth. Includes substantial bridge work with 17 bridge replacements, 5 new bridges, and 2 rehabilitations. It includes the reconstruction of Interstate I-690, correcting geometric issues like adding shoulders, providing better transitions on and off I-690, making transitions to and from Business Loop 81 and ramps. This includes all the work of I-690 at West Street and the upgrades of the West Street corridor. So this is, again, the biggest contract. We're estimating this one will be about $650 million. Overall on this whole big picture 8 contracts, we're estimating, I think our latest estimate is $2.2 billion for the 8 contracts. So a lot of work. Moving on to the 7th contract, that's the northern section of Business Loop 81. This contract includes full reconstruction of Business Loop 81 from I-81 at around Hiawatha to Erie Boulevard downtown. Business Loop 81 will see another lane added northbound from 3 to 4 lanes. Southbound will be reconstructed carrying the 3 lanes as it does today. The contract includes a structural wall system through the canyon area, including Clinton Street southbound off-ramp, Business Loop 81 southbound off-ramp to Oswego Boulevard, Pearl Street on-ramp to Business Loop 81 northbound, Erie Canal Gateway feature, Butternut Street bridge replacement, rehabilitation of the I-81 Carousel Center. And there is significant storm and sanitary work associated with this one. That will separate the storm and sanitary in some of this area, and certainly help some of the issues we have with overflow happening, that we won't be adding that storm water into the sanitary system anymore. And finally, contract 8. So this is the contract that connects the Almond Street corridor into Business Loop 81 from Erie Street south down to Burt Street. Lots of bridge removal work. Wilson Park will be upgraded as part of this contract. Again, a lot of storm and sanitary separation work with this contract as well. It's going to create the new Business Loop 81 corridor downtown with pedestrian, bicycle, and transit accommodations. Center of Excellence, parking, cycle track, and a medium are all features of this contract. And you can see the rendering here of what the vision is for what that corridor could look like, should look like. You know, as we've gone through this process, which has been a long process to get here, we've seen that, you know, elected officials, business travelers, and the Central New York community are united in 4 areas of creating jobs, improving pedestrian, bicycle, and transit, growing the economy, and enhancing the quality of life by protecting historic and cultural resources. Jobs, the goal is to make a difference economically in Central New York, create a unique, meaningful employment program that leads not only to jobs on this project, but long-term employment, and helps address poverty and unemployment. So DOT is working with local job advocacy and training organizations to make this difference. And the I-81 project is a way of connecting people to these opportunities. Bike and transit. Vibrant City provides safe and good connectivity for pedestrians, bicycles, and transit accommodations. And economic growth. Jobs is a high priority, but creating jobs that lead to economic growth for Central New York is the real goal. And sustainability and living, historic preservation, using rain as a resource, community connections, tying the near west side with Armory Square. That's all part of that. And, you know, as we go through this process, we are requiring many strips of land. This is the New York State eminent domain process. We are currently in this area right here. We don't make offers until we get to this record of decision, which we're getting very close to, as I mentioned earlier. So we're kind of in this step 2 area, moving towards step 3, following our eminent domain process to legally acquire the property and get the property owners paid. We are acquiring somewhere in the neighborhood of 185, mostly strips of land, as I said. So a lot of these aren't that impactful. We do have 4 properties that will be acquired with buildings. So 4 buildings, 4 commercial businesses. And the majority of the property will be within the city of Syracuse, but we have some acquisitions in the town of Cicero and DeWitt. So going over these 4 buildings, we have the 500 Renwick Avenue. That's the Syracuse Housing Authority. I believe they're operating out of another location. This is a storage area now. 101 Lodi Street. So that's Tobin's, and there's also a arms dealer that operates out of Celtic for some time yet. And the last one is this 215 Gannett Drive, where it's very close to where this connection is going to happen, where Clinton connects down to Butternut here. And when we're all said and done, we're anticipating surplus property. We're estimating approximately 10 to 12 and a half acres of surplus property depending on how much land is needed to accommodate the highway, sidewalks, the shared use paths, and other transportation features. We'll determine the size and locations of the surplus right away once construction is complete. And New York State DOT will be forming land use working groups consisting of representatives from the city school district, economic development, economic opportunity organizations, business community, environmental justice communities, neighborhood residents, and other organizations, and stakeholders as appropriate to provide input to New York State DOT in establishing the framework for the non-transportation use of these potential surplus properties. And again, our surplus property, we do have federal and state laws that we follow to dispose of the property. And, you know, like the surplus property disposition will have to also comply with Syracuse zoning, ordinance, land use, and development plan 2040. So, and I don't know how my time's going here, but I just quickly touching as part of the construction, we do, as all construction work, we do have plans to control dust, control noise, minimize impact. We, you know, a lot of people have been concerned about access. We always make accommodations to ensure that access continues. Now, it may not be a paved access, but there will be access to all properties along the corridor. So those are all things that are always part of a, you know, we keep traffic moving and we try to do our best to minimize the impacts. With that being said, I'll take some questions.
Thank you so much, Robert. It's amazing how much work has gone into this project. We have a few questions, however, we're running out of time. Do you want to maybe ask one question? Danielle, just let me know what it is. And the rest we will put on the hot news. We will ask for Mr. Rugg's information and we'll put it on the hot news, but we will ask one question before we leave. Thank you.
Sounds good.
How will this project affect the sale of properties? That's one question.
Yes, I get that question, and it can't hurt the, you know, it can't hurt the sale of property. I think a project like this, we generally see it's going to create opportunities all around the community. So while there will be 6 years of impact, you know, we're going to get to the other side of that impact, and that impact isn't all going to be in one area. So the impact's going to move. It's not going to be one area is going to be impacted for 6 years. It's going to be a few years in one spot, a few years in another. You know, I can't accurately project where property is going to go, but what we do see pretty consistently is with big projects like this, we do see a lot of opportunities comes with it. A lot of opportunities for, you know, economic growth, and properties become more valuable when that happens.
Thank you so much, Robert. You have been an inspiration on this whole project, and we have a clearer picture of what's going on. I'd like to thank all of our speakers today. There's a lot of great information given here today.